place when I was 14 years old in Virginia. It was right after Roe v. Wade, and I had no place to go. So what happened was that I had an unfortunate, horrible, I had a miscarriage of that baby in my mother's bathtub and almost bled to death because there was no place for me to go.
So you can't take pictures of those kids like that?
I don't want another 14-year-old girl to think that it's okay to bleed to death in her mother's bathtub because there was no place for her to go without judgment, without emotional manipulation. That's right! We must stand up for women's rights, and we must stand up for our right to have dominion over our own bodies. That's right. Because we'll never be free if we let other people tell us what to do. What is a moral decision? A moral decision means that you have a choice between doing something. And if you don't have a choice, it's not it's a tyranny. It's not freedom. It's tyranny. They terrorize women throughout this country. There are women right now that are in jail for miscarriages. There are women in jail right now in the United States of America because they were miscarried or had a stillborn baby. Now our bodies are being criminalized. What's next? Stoning?
That's right.
That's right. We have this Congress, people, because we didn't show up in the polls. The next time in 2016, people, get your butt to a poll and vote as if your life depended on it because it does. Thank you.
I was sexually assaulted at the age of 14. 6 weeks later, I found myself pregnant. This was in 1973, right after Roe v. Wade had been enacted. There wasn't clinics to go to. And I didn't know what was going on. I was a child. Okay, and so I had provincial parents. My parents told me, if you ever got pregnant, I'll kick you out of the house. So I decided to go find a place to go have a baby. Those magical places that they used to tell women about, the unwed mothers' homes. And so I tried to go there, and the night before I went, I suffered a miscarriage, and I was bleeding profusely, and it was a horrible pain, and I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't tell my mother, I couldn't tell my sister, I couldn't tell nobody. So I crawled into my mother's bathtub and almost bled to death. When I passed the tissue, I had no place to go for care. It affected me in many ways. It affected my fertility. It affected a lot of different medical problems because I couldn't get help because there was no place for me to go. When, you know, abortion clinics and women's clinics in general provide more than abortion care. They provide care for pap smears. They provide cancer screenings. They provide obstetric care for women who really want to have their children. And that's the reason why women are now dying, because those services are no longer available. And so what happens is that when abortion clinics are illegal, women die. And that's what I feel. I feel like my politicians want us dead. Because you know what? There's this controversy over whether or not fetuses feel pain. And that's the whole point of gestation, because you're supposed to gestate a baby. It's supposed to grow in you. And there is considerable scientific argument as to when that baby develops nerves that can be felt. But there's one thing that is true, is that already born sentient women already feel pain. And when we can't have access to care for pregnancies and problem pregnancies, etc., then we feel pain. So what happens is we have to determine whether or not women's lives are more important than the contents of our uterus, and at what time they become less important. There's all kinds of scientific evidence that says that they don't feel pain at 9 weeks. They don't have the physiological nerve endings that are there in order to do that. So we do know that women who are already born feel pain. So why is it okay for women who are already born to feel pain, to be required to be, to have the government impose birth on them? Because that's what it is, and potentially the government imposing a death sentence. We have been looking at this as, oh well, women should be able to have an abortion if they're having a medical problem. But the problem is that takes away the choice of women to determine and have dominion over their bodies, okay, at a certain time. And so there's a million reasons why a woman should or could decide to have an abortion. But the most important of that is her personal freedom. If we're going to have dominion over our bodies, we should be able to make that choice. And that moral choice should be between me and my God, not me and these men. Well, we have a new Congress. The first thing they did was for their initial legislation was to try to pass anti-women legislation and an abortion ban. That's the low-hanging fruit for their base. They didn't worry about, you know, what did they, the first laws that they tried to pass was that, you know, minimum wage increase, was that make more jobs? No, it was let's attack women. Let's attack abortion because that's red meat for their base. So we're always the political piñata for depending on whoever's in power. Well, now they want to take birth control away from women. Now they want to regulate that as well. You know, this was long settled, you know, with you know, our wonderful Justice Ginsburg, who argued those cases in front of the Supreme Court, that you know, that the right to contraception we've had this for years. I lived in a time where my mother actually had to ask my father permission to get a birth control pill after she had 5 children. I mean, do we want to go back to that world where we have to ask men for permission to have dominion over our bodies? Because that's what they want right now. They want men to have dominion over, because again, it's not about abortion, it's about controlling people. Right. Okay? If they can control people, if they can vilify a certain number of people, if they can make women those bad women who don't care about their babies. Women care about their children. I care about my son. One I got to have.
Yeah, you want to be wanted, you know.
I want to be able to take care of the children that I bring in this world.
Right.
I want people, and you know something, the thing is that I am pro-life. I believe that all lives are important.
Right, you don't want to be abusing children that you don't want.
I'm not pro-birth, I'm pro-life. I want the children here to be fed and educated, and to have health care, and to have a decent education, and to be able to live in freedom, and to be able to live without having the government impose a moral system on them or a religion on them. I am pro-life, but I am not pro-birth, and there's a big difference between pro-life and pro-birth. Because if you're pro-life, you're against capital punishment. If you're pro-life, you're against women being having pregnancy imposed on them with the potential for them dying from it.
Thank you.